Year 1896, the Osage natives, an American Indian tribe, were engaging in a solemn ritual just outside of Pawhuska, Oklahoma. They bury a peace pipe, a sacred object symbolizing the connection between physical and spiritual realms. Their hearts heavy with fear and sadness, they foresee a future where their descendants would be uprooted from their homes due to the coming of outsiders to their land. In a twist of fortune, a band of men stumbled upon an oil reserve on their land. This unforeseen discovery catapulted the Osage natives to unprecedented wealth, making them, per capita, the wealthiest group in the country by the early 1920s. This turnaround propelled the Osage natives to the apex of wealth in the nation. But as fate would have it, it doesn't take long for others to start eyeing their newfound fortune. The Osage natives found themselves in the middle of a storm. Their wealth attracts greed and envy. Following the end of the World War I, a new character enters the frame. Ernest Burkhart, played by the charismatic Leonardo DiCaprio, steps foot in the Osage Nation of Oklahoma in the year 1920. The soldier is seeking work. He finds solace with his uncle, William King Hale, portrayed by the legendary Robert De Niro. Hale is a former cattle rancher. He has risen through the ranks to become a deputy sheriff, wielding his influence over the fortunes of several Osage natives. Ernest's brother Byron is also present, looking after the Hale's ranch. As Ernest settles into his new environment, Hale reveals to him the wealth hidden beneath the Osage Nation. The allure of riches is too powerful to resist. He encourages Ernest to seize this golden opportunity, but not without a stern warning. To steer clear of causing troubles that could stir the waters that he has set up, reminds him that he is the sheriff in the town. As the echo of Hale's words fades, the tension builds. As the wealth of the Osage grew, so did the number of mysterious and unexplained deaths among the tribe members, a chilling correlation that could not be ignored. Meet Molly Kyle, a full-blooded Osage woman, played by the talented Jessica Chastain, who lives with her mother, Lizzie. Molly's life is a great representation of the tribe's situation. Her legal guardian, Pitts Beatty, listens to her as she pays him a visit. By the way, Molly's siblings, Anna Brown, Rita, and Minnie, also meet with him often, as he is also their guardian. Their conversations revolve around her family's spending habits and their health conditions. To explain why she's here, the U.S. government deems the Osage people as incapable of managing their immense money, and imposed a policy forcing them to have guardians to manage their finances. It's within his approval that decides if a proposed expense is just or not. Ernest embarks on his journey when he lands a job as a cab driver. One day he meets Molly and offered her his services. As the tale progresses, we observe the blossoming of Ernest's feelings for Molly, feelings that flower until Molly welcomes him into her home. Here he meets her mother, who appears slightly troubled. Despite this, both savor a splendid time during a storm, smoking and drinking. Ernest reveals his emotions for Molly to Hale, who endorses his choice of love. Their courtship involves Ernest also visiting the church every Sunday, a thing that's vital for Molly. This close bond leads to a magnificent wedding. Yet during the marital festivities, Hale's focus is seized by a dispirited Minnie, leading him to engage her in conversation. Minnie unveils her increasing health apprehensions. It emerges that a strange and rampant wasting disease is afflicting the Osage people, and Minnie is terrified that she is getting weak. Her fears become reality as she tragically succumbs to the disease shortly after. As the sun rises on the next day, the Osage community gathers to bid their final farewell to Minnie. The somber procession is a sad sight, the collective grief of the tribe palpable in the air. Molly, mourning the loss of her sister, finds herself in the company of Lizzie, her mother, and an elderly woman with knowledge of Osage traditions and beliefs. Lizzie confides in Molly about a chilling encounter she had the night before. She tells of an owl that entered her room, a sign that she interprets as an omen of death. The tale sends a shiver down Molly's spine, ignores it, but her fears for the safety of her family growing. Meanwhile, Anna, the mother's favorite and the most flamboyant of the siblings, continues to live life on the edge. She's seen indulging in alcohol excessively, and her reckless behavior is further exacerbated by her new habit of carrying a firearm in her handbag. Her mother, blinded by favoritism, turns a blind eye to these troubling habits. In a shocking twist, an altercation ensues inside the house between Anna and one of the men in Lizzie's house. The heated exchange leaves the family in shock, but none could predict the horror that was to come. Just days after the incident, Anna is found dead, a fatal gunshot wound to her head. The news sends shockwaves through the community, further escalating the fears that had already begun to take root. In a gruesome turn of events, the town doctors, under the employ of Hale, perform a crude autopsy to retrieve the bullet from Anna's head. In the autopsy, no bullet was found. This made the locals doubtful. In the wake of the tragic loss, the Osage leaders gather to strategize a response. The air is thick with tension and fear, yet beneath it all a flame of determination burns brightly. A meeting is held, attended by over 25 Osage families. Their resolve is clear. They demand answers, justice for their fallen kin. They pool together their resources amounting to $20,000, offering a substantial reward for any information that leads to the capture of Anna's killer. Hale, in a show of solidarity or perhaps a clever ruse, adds $1,000 to the reward. The tribe's representative, Barney McBride, is dispatched to Washington, D.C., tasked with seeking federal intervention into the string of unsolved murders. The grim reality of the situation spurs Molly into action. Fueled by her grief and a burning desire for justice, she sets out to seek the help of a private investigator. But here's the twist. A dark underbelly of betrayal and deceit emerges from the shadows. The man who the Osage trusted, Sheriff Hale, was the mastermind behind the horrifying murders. Dispatching his men, they cornered Barney McBride during his travel to Washington, stabbing him to death before he could even leave town. His body was later found in an eerie, desolate alley, a grim testament to Hale's ruthless ploy. But Hale was not alone in this sinister plot. His criminal operations involved a crew of miscreants, including the notorious Blackie Thompson, Henry Grammer, Kelsey Morrison, and A.C. Kirby. The shocking truth is, Ernest and Byron, who we've known to be people of repute, were also part of Hale's cruel entourage. Ernest was far from the good person he portrayed himself to be. His unlawful deeds included gambling with jewels stolen from the innocent Osage victims. These acts are still unrevealed to the Osage, and Molly in particular grapples for justice and continue their quest to unravel the truth. In the wake of the shocking revelations, Hale, the master manipulator, decides to tighten his grip. He corners Ernest, his ally turned liability, in a dimly lit room, his face a mask of cold fury. "You've jeopardized everything we've built," he hisses, his anger palpable. He questions Ernest's ability to lead his family, suggesting that his affections for Molly and their children have made him weak. Hale urges Ernest to assert control over his family's decisions and paddles him to prevent further slip-ups that could expose their sinister operations. As the days pass, a pall of sorrow descends upon the Osage community. Lizzie, a beloved elder, succumbs to her failing health. Molly and Rita keep vigil by her bedside, their hearts heavy as they bid her farewell. As she draws her last breath, it is as if the elder Osage spirits have come to escort her into the afterlife, leaving behind a trail of grief and loss. Hale's reign of terror doesn't end there. Next on his list is Henry Roan, Molly's ex-husband. A familiar figure in town, he's often seen drowning his regrets in alcohol, a tragic figure resigned to an untimely end. Hale's accomplice trails him one day, leading him out of town under the guise of friendship. But, in a desolate spot, he shoots Henry in the back of his head, clumsily attempting to frame it as a suicide. As the dust of betrayal settles, Ernest, the imperfect man but a loving father, cradles his newborn, Anna, named in memory of Molly's murdered sister. Despite his shady past, his affection for Molly and their children remains unaltered. Amidst the turmoil, a glimmer of hope arrives in the form of a private investigator, William J. Burns. He steps off the train, a silhouette against the smoky backdrop of the station, a calling card in his hand, and a promise of justice in his words. He confides in Molly and Ernest about the recent developments in Anna's case. He reveals that another investigator, Mr. Smith, Rita's husband, has been diligently working on the case too. Smith, after a meticulous interview with the driver who last saw Anna alive, has identified the culprits. However, he plans to reveal the identities only when he has gathered sufficient evidence to support his claim. Ernest, after hearing this news, relays it to Hale, his co-conspirator. The news sends a ripple of worry through Hale as he anticipates the impending revelation. Taking matters seriously, Hale sends Ernest and Byron to their new victim, the private investigator William J. Burns. Knocked out by the two, he lies in his office, beaten and bruised, a grim reminder of the ruthless power Hale wields. As the tension heightens, Molly is haunted by the specter of uncertainty and the dread of the unknown. Sleep becomes a distant dream for her. Ernest, her devoted husband, recognizing her distress, takes her to consult two eminent doctors, same doctors employed by Hale. They diagnose her with diabetes and prescribe her injectable insulin, advising her to abstain from sweet indulgences. Molly, however, remains skeptical of the conventional medical practitioners, and entrusts Ernest with the task of administering her insulin. Determined to maintain a semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos, the couple hosts a dinner for their close friends. The room, filled with the clinking of glasses and mirthful laughter, serves as a brief respite from the lurking dread. Amidst the festivities, they announce the news of Molly's pregnancy. The room erupts into cheers, the joy momentarily overshadowing the undercurrent of fear, marred by the impending sense of doom. Following the joyous announcement, Molly's health takes a terrifying turn. She is besieged by hallucinations and uncanny encounters with a haunting owl, a chilling echo of her mother's past experiences. In horror, Ernest, her trusted partner, begins surreptitiously poisoning her insulin injections, further exacerbating her condition. As we grapple with the unfolding treachery, an unexpected knock at Ernest's door introduces us to Tom White, an agent from the Bureau of Investigation. He has come seeking answers about the mysterious murders plaguing the town. Ernest and Hale, the town's influential figure, artfully dodge his probing questions, their guilt masked behind feigned ignorance. In a desperate effort to conceal his heinous crimes, Hale sets in motion a ruthless plan. He orchestrates the murder of his henchmen, sells his livestock in haste, and sets his crops ablaze to claim insurance money. In dread, he accumulates the funds necessary to cover his tracks and finds the best attorneys he can find. Meanwhile, the elders of the Osage tribe, weary of the relentless chaos, arrange a meeting with White. They express their hope that help from the nation's capital is finally here. White, sensitive to their plight, responds positively, promising to do everything in his power to bring justice to the beleaguered tribe. As the noose tightens, White's relentless pursuit of justice begins to bear fruit. His team of undercover agents, disguised as ranch hands and oilmen, manage to secure key witnesses. The damning evidence they collect leads to the arrest of Ernest and Hale, the puppet masters behind the terrifying string of murders. Amidst the chaos, Molly's health takes a critical turn. Realizing the severity of her condition, the agents provide immediate medical care, which eventually leads to her recovery. Hale's lawyer, W.S. Hamilton, sensing the imminent danger, coerces Ernest into claiming he was beaten and tortured, threatening harm against Ernest and his family if he fails to comply. And so the trials begin. In the grim confines of the detention center, a devastating news is delivered. White, carrying the burden of a bearer of bad news, informs Ernest of baby Anna's untimely demise, a casualty to a relentless lung infection. The impact of this revelation causes a seismic shift in Ernest's loyalties. His once ally, Hale, morphs into an adversary in the blink of an eye. As the echo of the gavel resonates in the courtroom, Ernest, with a newfound resolve, takes the stand against Hale. Prosecutor Leeward, with a stern gaze, probes Ernest about his involvement in the string of murders that plagued the Osage community. Ernest, in a rare moment of honesty, confesses to being a pawn in Hale's diabolical game, lured by the promise of wealth and power. Leeward, not letting up, questions Ernest about his marriage to Molly. Ernest, adamant, claims that his love for Molly was not a smokescreen for his ulterior motives. His words, however, fall on deaf ears, as Molly, in a private confrontation, questions Ernest about the true nature of his actions. Ernest, ensnared in his web of lies, continues to deceive Molly, insisting that the injections he administered were but insulin. This final deception proves to be the last straw for Molly, and she, with a heavy heart, severs ties with Ernest. Ernest Burkhart's plot to kill Molly and inherit the Kyle family's head rights and oil money, which was worth $7 million at the time, or $160 million in 2022, had undoubtedly failed. He was convicted for the murder of Anna Brown in 1926 and sentenced to life imprisonment. Hale also was convicted and sentenced to a life in prison. He and his accomplice, Byron, eventually made parole. Their freedom, however, came with a condition. Hale was forever banished from the land of Oklahoma. A radio show concludes with a chilling note. The Osage murders, a dark chapter in history, were never mentioned again. A silent testament to the horrors that were swept under the rug. It's the sad truth. At present day, the Osage people, resilient and strong, gather in unity, their voices rising in song, their bodies swaying in dance. Amidst the echoes of the past, they continue to thrive, a beacon of hope and resistance in the face of adversity. We hope you like the story, guys. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you all.